Up here to do some filming with this injured wild dog because we have the hopes that it's going to get better. And this is the scene that we found. I don't know what's going to happen. It's an interesting scene. For anyone that's sensitive, maybe don't watch. But this is very, very interesting. I don't know if the hyena is waiting to see if this dog will fight back. Obviously, the dog's moved from where we saw it this morning. Where we saw it this morning was probably about 100 meters, 100 yards from where we are now. Again, if you're sensitive, maybe don't watch. But if you want to see nature at its best, this is a very good thing to be watching. I can't even begin to describe to you how incredibly interesting this is, because even though that hyena is much larger than that wild dog, and obviously a lot more fit than this wild dog that we're seeing, it's still displaying submissive behavior with this injured dog. So it can tell. I personally think this hyena can tell that this wild dog is injured, but the wild dog is growling enough. I mean, look at that. That is huge submissive behavior. Do you see there? I mean, and it's chewing on its. Yes. Oh my goodness gracious, everyone. This dog does not want to give up at all. So whatever leg it just chomped on there, obviously the dog still has feeling in its extremities. And if it's able to move as far as it's moved from this morning, my thoughts were that it wasn't really going to last for most of the day, but you'd be amazed. Tristan was telling me about a wild dog that he knew who had both and could feed. Senzo, I do think that this hyena is taking advantage of this injured wild dog to see if it can eat it, but I think this wild dog has a lot of gumption left. You can see it's the back right leg that's injured, but again, it still has all three legs that's usable, excuse me. You can see it's a very hungry dog. Obviously, it's difficult for it to hunt because the way that a dog hunts is very different from a cat. Its claws can't get caught in. You can see that it hurts to get down, but you can also see that by it standing up the way that it is, it's trying to make itself bigger, and the hyena is not taking that lightly at all. So the leg that the hyena bit earlier is the injured leg. So obviously there's more displacement behavior going on here, where the hyena is pretending now to ignore the dog a little bit. Smelling, checking, but also keeping an eye on any sort of advantage it might be able to get. But that wild dog is keeping an eye as best as it can. I mean, that hyena has tens of kilograms, tens of pounds on that wild dog. But do you remember the sighting we had the other day where there was the whole pack of dogs? And that hyena was following it around, and they killed that little baby hyena. Ugh. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our action broadcast. I'm going to prelude this with saying that if you are a sensitive viewer, you're not going to want to watch this. If you are a viewer that enjoys strange interactions and unusual interactions in the bush, stay with us. We have another vehicle that's in the sighting with us, so you will hear it from time to time. I'm Noelle. I've got Senzo on camera. There we go. Hi, Senzo. We're going to go back now over to this hyena and this wild dog. Sorry about that, guys. I just don't want to miss anything with this sighting. This hyena is circling this injured wild dog. This wild dog's been injured for several days now. Watch. The back right leg is the injured leg. We believe it was injured from a lion, and we do think that this hyena is trying to gain some sort of advantage to kill and eat this wild dog. Hyenas are one of the few predators that will actively hunt other predators. These sounds are absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So for those of you that might just be joining us on this action broadcast on whatever platform you're on, the African wild dog is not related to a domesticated dog. It's also known as an African painted wolf. That hyena is much bigger, much bigger than that wild dog. Oscar, you're curious to know where the pack is. Oscar, the pack has left this dog. Usually packs are very good at keeping injured ones with, but this one is injured enough that it really can't keep up with that pack. So that pack has left, and they are busy hunting. They came to visit past this side, late last night / early this morning. But unfortunately, it's to the detriment of the pack if they stick in this one area, because they won't be able to hunt properly. I've got another vehicle. You'll hear it. You'll hear the sound just behind us, who's coming to join us. We do share this this property with other lodges. Amy, you are so right. It is ruthless, and it is part of life. And Amy, I'm glad you're enjoying it in the same way that I'm enjoying it, which is I actually have goosebumps. And I don't necessarily want the hyena to get the wild dog, but the hyena's job is to take out the old, the weak, and the sick. And unfortunately, this wild dog happens to be one of those. Sorry, just excuse the noise behind me. I've just got another vehicle that's come through. I'm just busy filming live for all of you on this action broadcast at the moment. I am going to have to reposition the vehicle a little bit better. Senzo can also see a little bit of a better viewing. So if you just give me a second or two, we're not going to miss too much action. We will move around for you, that's for sure. We're just going to push our nose down a little bit more. And see if we can get a little bit of a different glance for you. And as I say that, it looks as if the hyena... Geez, strain dog, you're curious, why not say the dog? Everyone, this is wild. These are wild animals. These are not pets. We do not interfere. We just are lucky enough to see wildlife doing what wildlife does. Human interference in most circumstances of wildlife is not for the better. We have a lot of emotions that go through a scenario like this, or any sort of scenario where you have a tough thing happening, but it is not necessarily for the better. The hyena's job is to eat, but its job is also to take out the old, the weak, and the sick of any sort of species. And although it is heart-wrenching with this wild dog, there's nothing wrong with what's happening here. So it's very hard to detach ourselves as humans with the emotional side of things. It is very, very difficult, but unfortunately that is something we have to do in a scenario like this. And then we have to appreciate the fact that both of these species that we're currently with are allowing us to view them. So the reason why the hyena moved a little bit now has to do with that vehicle that came past us, and then a little bit with me as well, positioning my car was just a lot of noise. So unfortunately for us, we have interfered a titch with this scenario. It couldn't be helped. Unfortunately, I needed to move away from the road so that that vehicle could carry on. And this hyena is now debating whether or not it's going to go back. A hyena is very tenacious with the way that they hunt and the way that they harry their prey. So I do think he's going to go back. John, you're curious to know, are there any lions around? John, there's lions that aren't, as the crow flies, too far from us, but the pride that's there is not a pride that usually comes down this far south. If the lions were to come again, then they would definitely kill this wild dog, but they wouldn't eat it. If this hyena kills the wild dog, it will eat it. So this hyena is now deciding if it is worth to stay and try and finish off this wild dog, or if it's going to move away for now. I have a feeling that its choice is going to be to move off for now and then wait. I do think that that's what's going to happen. So unfortunately, the noise levels, as well as the dog's ability to chase off that predator, has even in its state, has made it so this hyena is sort of taking a breather and taking a break. It's actually not that far from us at the moment. It's just on our left-hand side, and it's busy listening and investigating and deciding. It's a male hyena, so hyenas live in clans of females with young. The males are more nomadic, as it were. And he's going to move off a little bit. There we go. Now, again, I know it's a very difficult sighting that we just had, but I cannot even begin to describe to you. I've been guiding for just over a decade, and I've never seen something like this. I've seen bits that are very similar to this, but I've never seen something like this. So this is an extremely exceptional, albeit harrowing, sighting. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us for the action broadcast. I do appreciate you coming in and viewing this amazing sighting with us. There's our dog there. So please continue to follow us along other channels, YouTube, or follow us on Twitter with more questions or comments, #SafariLive. Okay, everyone, we're back. We're here. Our hyena has moved off a little bit. I don't know if while we're still here, if this hyena is going to come back. Senzo and I are going to be sitting with this dog for a little bit. We're going to do some filming. I didn't want any of you to miss that sighting. I know for some of you it was probably very difficult, but I also know for a lot of you it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing to see. So I'm here. I'm open to any comments, any questions you have about anything that happened, and we're very open about talking about every aspect. No matter how difficult or how hard or even slightly, I don't want to use the word enjoyable, but it is an amazing, intricate little sighting that we had there. I mean, just completely out of this world. Again, I still have goosebumps. Seeing things like this is very, very rare. All right. While we are letting you all think and while we are busy checking on everything, let's go over to Tristan. I think, if I heard correctly, he's got something that we've been looking for all afternoon. I'm so excited for everyone that you got Hasana and Shadow in one sighting. Tristan is our elephant whisperer. The other vehicles have left this sighting, and Senzo and I are sitting here very quietly. So part of what our jobs are to do is to not only show you safari and have you be on game drive with us, but part of what we also do is we document the happenings of what's going on. So again, if you're very sensitive, this might not be for you, but there's still very interesting behavior happening here. So this hyena has circled around, the dog has growled at it, it has started to sort of lick up bits of soil near the dog in an attempt to try and show the dog that it's pretending to not be interested in it. However, that being said, we all know that this hyena is very interested in this dog. The outcome of a scenario like this, I couldn't exactly tell you. There's a few things that could happen. There's a breeding herd of elephants that was at the dam earlier that's not far from us. Now, elephants usually don't pay huge much attention to dogs unless they're in a very big pack, or into hyenas unless they're in a very big clan. But if there's enough squealing and yelping, you might see that they might get perturbed by it and come back and chase them off. The other thing that could happen is the pack could come back. They could hear what's going on with those very large ears that they have if they're close enough. And if they can hear any of the distress cries, they will come back and assist if they're within hearing distance. The other thing that could happen is more hyenas come. Rose, you're asking a really interesting question. Why is the hyena hesitant? So, Rose, one of the main reasons why the hyena is hesitant is because the wild dog is a predator and has sharp teeth. Its jaws are not as strong enough, I can't talk right now, are not as strong as the hyenas, but it's still a predator and it's still able to nip and to bite. And so if the hyena goes in and tries to, let's say, finish off this wild dog, and misjudges its approach, and the dog bites it and injures it enough where that wound on the hyena could become septic or could possibly make the hyena not able to function within its environment, that's an issue for the hyena. And so that's why the hyena is hesitant. Another possibility as well is that in general, dogs tend to bed down for the night, and in general, hyenas tend to move around at night, or sort of when it's cooler. So the hyena might also just be waiting for it to be darker. The hyena could also just be deciding whether it's really worth the effort to go after this dog as opposed to go look for something else. Now just listen there. Do you see when the dog growls at it, how it looks away and stops and is really thinking about what is it going to do? I've seen this with lions as well, with something like a honey badger, and I've seen lions kill a honey badger, but the growl and the teeth structure of the honey badger is sometimes just too much for the lion. So you can see this hyena is now moving off. It might move off forever, but again, knowing hyenas as well as I do, they are curious and persistent, so it might come back. It's just biding its time. I think while we're waiting to see what happens here, let's link back to Tristan with his beautiful leopards that I know you all love to see. Hi everyone, so the hyena has moved away and it hasn't come back, and our wild dog is resting as best as it possibly can. We had one more vehicle that came to join us in the sighting, and he was saying that several days ago, 2-3 days ago, this wild dog was just a little bit farther north from where we are, and that he thinks it was the same hyena, was also there sort of near it. So this hyena is aware of this dog enough. We have been sitting here quietly, and he hasn't really moved. There's been a hippo in the water that's been rolling around and busy getting ready to move out. And Senzo and I were thinking that it's possible that he might move this way and sort of investigate this wild dog, but we're not quite sure. We're doing our best to be as unobtrusive as possible and as quiet as possible, and it seems as if this dog is okay with where we are positioned and how quiet we're being, and we're not interfering with him too much. We've also given him enough of a distance that if anything more were to start harassing him again, we're not interfering. The thing that happened earlier, as opposed to anything else. And again, we try not to interfere at any point, but unfortunately the movement of the vehicles had a slight effect. But he, as you know, he did come back and then just has decided for now that this is not where he wants to be. There's our gray heron that has flown into the scene. Kristen, you're curious to know, with this injury, what would it be able to catch and feed on? It would eat things like grasshoppers, and it would eat things like possibly lizards. Right now, what's keeping it alive is the water. So I believe humans can go up to 3 weeks without having food as long as they have water. But our metabolism is not as high as a wild dog's, so the wild dog has less time for it. But again, getting back to the story that Tristan was telling me about the wild dog that had the 2 back legs that stopped functioning and just the front legs, he was saying that wild dog ate grasshoppers and lived for quite a while, grasshoppers and lizards. So there's a possibility. Also, I want to just add in here as well, if the pack does decide to come back to this dog at all and check on it, they haven't been calling. They were calling to each other the other morning, but they haven't been calling the couple of times I've seen this dog today. They had eaten something they would regurgitate for him, which would help. But I don't know if that's just something that could happen. I don't know if it's going to happen. That pack, the Investec and Bali breakaways with that collared male from the Angama pack, they have a very large traverse area. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head exactly the hectareage or acreage size of it, but it's quite large. So it's also important that they move enough within their territory to keep themselves safe and keep away from things like lion and large clans of hyena and anything else that could possibly injure them. And also, again, because their metabolism is so high, they have to constantly be feeding. So I was actually pretty convinced that this was going to be the last day for the dog. But then after the interaction with the hyena today, and as well as the fact that it's made it down towards the water, I'm going to start agreeing more with Rexon, who thinks that this dog's going to have a better chance. And then I was also thinking about it. My sister, when I was a little kid, my older sister had a 3-legged dog, and that 3-legged dog had a very good life and was fine. So I think that maybe if this injury is new enough, it's just a bit painful. I think as the pain starts to decrease, if this dog is still alive, that it might be able to carry on. You never know. Swapna, you're curious to know if wild dogs recover from injuries given time. Swapna, in my time as a guide, I've seen wildlife come back from what we as humans would consider a debilitating injury. And I've seen it time and time again, specifically more with lions, but I think I've just been my experiences have just been more with them in the injury point of view. So I do think that with time, that the possibility of him getting through this injury is a possibility. The problem of from what I can see, I'm going to use my shoulder as an example. It looks like the whole thing is possibly broken at the bottom and dislocated from the top. So every time it tries to move, or like the hyena was chewing on the paw earlier, it's hurting the whole leg. So it needs to either, this is going to sound awful, it needs to either like come off and sort of heal, which is very difficult for it to happen, or it needs to be able to move and function without constantly hitting that leg. But because the back legs are so long, it's very difficult for that to happen with the type of terrain we have. So the possibility of continuing or aggravating the injury or possibly re-injuring it is higher. So I think if in a week he is still alive and has not re-injured the injury, it's more of a possibility. But the next sort of 3 or 4 days will let us know for sure. But yeah, I mean, everything's 50-50. You never really know. He's changing positions a bit. All right, so we are only going to stay with this dog for another minute or two, and then we're going to leave him be and just let him try and get through the night. Let's head on over to James, who wants to lighten up our situation from our rather harrowing experience that we're dealing with now.